Hello, hello, and welcome back to Content Warfare TV. And thank you for everyone that has stuck around through the technical difficulties. We had to reboot a few servers and change a few lines out and get all tech support. But we have Marcus Sheridan, the sales lion, with us, and I am very, very happy because he's doing me a big favor. I had the guest who was lined up this week had something come up in her life and had to change her schedule, and he decided to step in and be the man that he is. So thanks, Marcus, for being here, buddy.
Hey, my pleasure, man. Hopefully, we'll have a good chat and add a little value to the world of all your crazy listeners and fans and minions, man. So let's do this.
I love the fact that over your right shoulder is the history of content marketing. It's so meta, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I like that poster. It's pretty cool. I got it from Joe Polizzi actually in the first content marketing awards. I think they call them the Orange Awards or something like that. And he gave that out as a gift. I was one of the nominees. It was cool, and it's got my name on it, and I just like it because it's kind of like, hey, yeah, it goes back to the beginning of time. This is nothing new here, folks. We're just calling it something different. And so even Joe, who's the godfather of content marketing, really recognizes that it's like I said, it's timeless. It's been around forever. It's going to always be here. We're just going to change the platforms as we go.
Yeah, well, you are part of the history of content marketing because you preach this over and over again, and it's one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on. Was excited to have you on, because I like the way, even in the description of this show, one of the things that I put in there was one of the things I've always respected about you and the work that you do is that you've never chase that rabbit down the hole of like tips, tactics, and tricks and stuff. Occasionally you'll throw something in there that's working for you, but you really stick to the basics and you hit them over and over again from a lot of different angles. And I was actually listening to last podcast, one before that, for your show, which I'll link up to in the show notes. If you're not listening to Marcus' show, you need to. You had four characteristics of buy-in of when you're talking to a boss, when you're talking to someone. Don't use the word content marketing. It's really these four things. Can you run through those for us? Because I think it's a better way of looking at this
all right.
whole thing.
So here's the thing: the stuff that I talk about, and what I'm getting ready to talk about, Ryan, is not. Nobody wants to share this on social media because it's not very sexy, right? We like to share things that are sexy, that get a lot of love, and that's why I think a lot of people don't talk about content marketing like this. But to me, I think it's a critical component of buy-in, and people say, why are we not getting more buy-in when it comes to social or content, all these things? I think most businesses don't understand what we're really talking about. So to me, it's always come down to four things, and really, it was these four things that saved my business, that turned everything around, that changed my life. Because as I was reading and learning about the internet in 2009, trying to save my swimming pool company, this is what I kept saying to myself. Number one, I've got to listen better than anybody else in my space. In other words, I've got to hear the questions that my potential customers are asking. What's their fears? What's their worries? What's their concerns? What's their issues, etc. Can I think it just like them? Number two, can I communicate in a way that as I'm answering them, do they understand what I'm saying? Do I use their words or do I use mine? Do I speak on their level or do I speak on mine, right? So that's communication. That's the essence of communication. Number three, do I see myself as a teacher or am I just schlepping my stuff all the time? Am I truly interested in if Johnny is in the back and he raises his hand and he says, I have a question, do I ignore little Johnny or do I sit there and say, here's the answer, and do I say it in a way that, like I said, he gets me? So that's the first three. And then number four is, how helpful am I at solving people's problems? Now, 5 years ago, it was solving problems in terms of how to buy a swimming pool, how to choose a fiberglass swimming pool, how to not get screwed over if you're buying a swimming pool, all these things, right? That's what I was doing 5 years ago. Today, I'm solving problems in different space. Every single client that I've ever worked with, if they catch the vision of what they of really what this is and what they want to be, is they learn to listen better than anybody else. They learn to communicate, they learn to teach, and they learn to be more helpful at solving everybody else's problems. If you look at all the greatest apps that have been developed over the past 5 years, Ryan, it's all about solving problems, and most of them are incredibly, grossly simple, right? That's what it comes down to. Nobody wants to talk about this stuff because it's not sexy, but this is what moves the needle in every business.
Yeah, so the first one, I want to dive back into listening because I think that this is really the first step, in my opinion. The clients that I work with in my own business at the Mer Group, when I was doing that, when I was doing that side, listening to what people actually want, right? This is a huge disconnect, in my opinion, that we come in and we think because we're a professional or we have some expertise in an area that we know what our clients want instead of listening to what they actually want. So how do you go about that? Like, how do you actually figure out, how do you listen to them? Do you just ask them questions? Is it as simple as that? Or are there some other methods that you have for just listening to what people are actually saying and what they actually want to learn about?
Yeah, I mean, I really, truly am obsessed with the way that people talk, right, and the way that they ask things. And it started when I was just a pool guy, and somebody would say, well, so if you or me, which one would you choose? Like a lot of business people hear that question, and it doesn't really register. I hear that question, I start getting off because I'm thinking to myself, this is an article that needs to be written. Because if they're asking it, another 1,000 people are asking it, another 1,000 people are searching it, etc. I have been obsessive about this idea of listening. I mean, people used to say to me all the time, I'm just going to use the pool stuff as an example. People used to say to me, okay, Marcus, I really like you a lot, but let's say we didn't use you, and let's say you were in our shoes, and you had to choose somebody in the area to pick, who would it be? Now, that's a tough question, Ryan. But that question led me to write a whole series of articles that have made me hundreds and hundreds of thousands in sales about who are some of the best pool builders in the different areas that we service for pools. And this is, I mean, again, this is something we've done with clients since I started my digital marketing agency. This is not specific, but it's like if you become obsessed with the way that your people think, you stop thinking like a business person, which is the death of all good things content marketing. You start thinking about your prospects and your customers and just the way that they see the world. You stop trying to sound smart, because the moment you try to sound smart in social media and content marketing is the moment you start to look really stupid, and you certainly don't earn people's trust, right? And so that's what I'm obsessed with. If somebody says to me after I give a talk or presentation or write an article, if somebody says to me, Marcus, dude, you are a genius, I do not take any satisfaction in that, Ryan, because it's not my goal to be a genius. It's my goal to have this beautiful communion with people, whether it's a simple blog article about a simple swimming pool or whether it's something very, very complex. The goal is always communion, and therefore you can't put yourself above the audience. You got to put yourself literally in their shoes. That's a hard thing to do, and most can't do it.
So was it the idea of, you know, so you throw the ideas of content marketing out there and the idea of listening, and if I'm a quote unquote businessman, what I'm thinking to myself is, Marcus, listening doesn't sound like how do I like that, how do I make money from listening, right? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. How do you fight back against that idea? Because I know everybody who's listening to this podcast goes, that makes sense to me, right? Listen, be part of the community, figure out what people need. And my boss is saying, how come we're not getting more Facebook likes and those likes aren't turning into revenue, right? Like, how do you combat that idea?
Well, all right, let me preface this with this. There's always a certain percentage of business people that are going to stink at what they do, and they're always going to struggle, and that's fine. And so we immediately eliminate them because they just don't have the ability to be empathetic. That's something I don't tend to focus on. That's a crowd that I do not worry about. Now, then there's another crowd that truly wants to be successful, right? They truly want to make their customers happy. Then it's just a matter of having them shift over and to start to think exactly like them. I don't really know how to. It's like, Ryan, if you look at this, all right, MySpace came and it went. Facebook is here today. It might be gone. Google Plus, which we're currently using, is here today. It might be gone in 6 months. We don't really know. They could just ditch this whole thing. When all is said and done, what is left? In other words, what is the key to all of this? And of course, the key to all of this is that we understand the basic and simple principles that we will carry from platform to platform to platform. You've made a living on it yourself. I've watched you. The content that you produce, the questions that you ask is based on the things that you're hearing all the time. And if you're a great listener, it's definitively impossible to run out of content ideas. You cannot do it. But the moment you stop listening is the moment you start to have problems in terms of content production. People say to me, you're just like, what would happen, Ryan? What would happen? The biggest problem I've seen in marketing departments around the globe, I'm talking a marketing department of 1 or 1,000. The biggest issue that they have is buy-in and help in terms of getting more content from their fellow employees, right? What would happen if every single company that had a sales department, and usually the number is like 10 to 1, 10 salespeople to 1 person in marketing, what would happen if every time they sent out an email, which, by the way, most salespeople on average will send out 10 to 100 emails a day, Ryan, to prospects and to customers. That's reality for businesses. A huge portion of those have a question that the prospect or customer asked, and then a huge portion therefore have an answer from the person that's in sales or the person that's in customer service, let's say, right? What would happen if somebody in marketing was BCC'd every time one of those emails was sent out? Do you think anybody in marketing would ever again say, I don't have enough content? I don't really have a good sense for our customers. I don't know the questions that they're asking. I don't know what we should be writing about. I'm just not really with it in terms of our product base and our knowledge, our service offerings. They ain't going to say that. Dude, they're going to be so in tune with it. One little freaking click of the mouse can change the whole game within entire companies. I say this because I've seen it happen. We've implemented this one change, and then all of a sudden marketing's not complaining anymore. And sales feels like, wow, they get me. And all of a sudden now the silos start to break down. And once the silos start to break down, now we're talking business in the digital age, brother. Because if you think sales and marketing can be separate entities in the digital age, you're screwed. It ain't going to work like that anymore.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And it's this whole idea of what the customer should know versus what the customer wants or needs to know. Right? I mean, that's the whole thing, is that we stand up on this mountain.
No, seriously. How often have you heard somebody say, yeah, but they should know that already? I mean,
Yeah.
come on, don't they know that? And you're like, no, don't you get it? When it comes to content marketing, ignorance truly is bliss. Because if you have it's and I remember Pat Flynn, like a long time ago, wrote an article, it's dumb not to dumb it down. I thought that was so great because it's so incredibly true. It is dumb not to dumb it down. That's why when I see people trying to look smart, I want to vomit in my mouth, because it never works out well for them. Not at all.
Yeah. So when I was doing my 100 insurance questions answered in 100 days series, how I kind of got my whole thing started in this industry, I collected 147 questions. And 5 of those questions, 5 of them were, how do I put my auto insurance on EFT? That's electronic funds transfer, right? To the average insurance agent, just in that particular industry, that is a question that they wouldn't even consider answering because they just assume that's easy. You just do the little number in your thing there, and your checking account goes through, and it's EFT. But 5 people out of 147 wanted to know that question. So it's like, you really can't go too basic on this stuff.
Dude, that's great. Let me give you one more example of when I was a pool guy. So a lot of pools have a type of filter that's a cartridge filter. It's about this big, and it's a little sphere with pleats in it, and it's just a cartridge is what it is. And hot tubs have them as well. And so it's pretty much a no-brainer how you clean these things off. You take a garden hose and then you spray them off. Well, we decided to do a video on how to clean a cartridge filter for a swimming pool. Ryan, that thing's got 500,000 views at this point, bro. That thing blew sky high on YouTube because apparently there's a lot of people that don't know how to clean a cartridge filter for a swimming pool. My point is, just like yours, if you literally go into content as a teacher, you assume that people in the class don't know anything. Now, eventually, of course, that's why we have personas too, because sometimes we write to the informed, sometimes we write to the uninformed, but the great ones know how to appease both sides of the party whenever they write. So, like when I write stuff, I'm oftentimes talking to a CMO, some type of chief marketing officer, but I might be talking to a mom and pop shop owner that just started thinking about marketing, right? So I'm talking to both spheres. And if you're really good at communication and communion, you can touch both and make both happy at the same time.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that there's just this I don't know what the word is, almost arrogance in people about their business, that their customers should assume should know this stuff, and that somehow a customer that doesn't know maybe these small, seemingly trivial or trite things isn't going to be a good customer, right? That's it's a ridiculous misconception,
Oh
but
man,
it happens all the time.
it's I call it the jewelry shop phenomena. So it's like, oh, if you have to ask how much it is, you shouldn't be shopping here in the first place. It's like the dumbest thing ever said by anybody. So even the richest people want to know how much the stupid thing is, right? And those same jewelry shops, they ain't going to be around tomorrow because that's not the way that we play the game, right? That's just not the way that it works. I expect answers. I expect them right now. And really that is the essence of where we're going. If you look, and this is a transcendent characteristic of society, Ryan. Those that understand this when it comes to the way they design their company's website, they have success. Those that understand this when they design a retail store, they have success. Think about Apple, and that is the essence of a great website today, of a great web experience today, of a great shopper experience is very, very simple. All right, it's two parts. It's number one, I want to find what I'm looking for. That is the definition of a great website today. But that is also, Ryan, that's the definition of a great convenience store, isn't it? That's the definition of a great e-commerce place. Number two, and here's the caveat, and I want to find it quickly. Those are the two things. If you can become a master at giving people what they want and giving it to them quickly, I don't care if you sell popsicle sticks or sell services as to how to make popsicle sticks, you're going to be more successful with your business, online and off.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've said this. I've said this stat 1,000 times on this show. The number one time that the Murray Group received new leads through their contact form was 7 to 9 p.m. at night. Right? People ate their dinner on their own time. There's no one at the store or at the place. There's no one. They go on, they surf, they find the answer because we have 475 articles answering all these questions. So that on their own time, they watch these videos, they make up their mind, they fill out the form, and they wait for the response the next day. Now, in a perfect world, someone picks up the phone and calls them right that minute. But people are doing this stuff on their own time, and if your website isn't providing you that experience, and this is why this is something I've seen you do. So I'm really interested in this. I've seen you start to bring together the ideas of website design, SEO, and great content, and instead of being three separate entities, which I think they were for a long time, right? There were website designers, there were SEOs, and there were content creators, and that really has become one thing, right? Like people may have a specialty in one area, but those three components are really the same thing now. Am I right in that?
Dude, you're so right, and that's exactly why you don't see web design companies anymore that are worth their salt that do not also offer search and content marketing services, right? Because you're right, they are the same thing. They're like the circle of digital life. That is just what they are. And so if you think about it, right? Okay, so you say, well, I'm going to be obsessive about listening. And I'm a pool guy. The number one question I get is, how much does a fiberglass pool cost? Well, that of course needs to be the first article that I write. And so I write an article. How much does a fiberglass pool cost? Now all of a sudden, from a search standpoint, Google loves the article because it matches a long tail phrase. And eventually that same article, because it did so very well, Ryan, ranked for shorter tail phrase keywords as well. That's SEO. But that SEO started because of listening and just simply wanting to answer a question exactly as how people think it and say it. You understand what I'm saying, right? Mm-hmm. And then in terms of your website design, just like you talked about, everything that we should do with our website and our content should be based on the idea that Google is also obsessed with giving great answers, right? And so if they're obsessed with giving you what you're looking for and giving it to you quickly, their whole algorithm is going to be based on that over time. So your homepage should be centered around what can I give you and what can I give it to you? How can I give it to you quickly? That's why less is more when it comes to homepage design. Less and less are we seeing freaking newspapers on homepages. Homepages are not meant to teach people. That's not the purpose of a homepage. The only purpose of a homepage for a website today, Ryan, is to get somebody to page 2. Because it is only at page 2 where they start to show us in themselves what they're truly interested in. They have to start to walk the path, right? Page 2 might be them calling you, but it's page 2. It's the next step. That's the only purpose of the homepage of a website. When a company gets that, they're changing the experience now. Search engines are starting to recognize that. There will come a definitive day when Google and all the search engines, as part of their algorithm, they will base everything on just how they watch people interrelate with your site as they go. And so it won't just be one page. It'll be how they play with the whole site. And that's kind of already happening, but it's going to happen at a much, much deeper level. They're going to be obsessed not just with that one article, but the other articles on that site as well are very much going to dictate how well that one particular page does, etc.
Yeah, and so you can already see that starting to happen. Not to go into marketing ones and zeros here, but they're doing it a little bit in search already. But they've implemented, for those who use YouTube a lot, and this is just forecasting. You know, we're talking one of the questions, Joshua. Actually, let's pull up a question real quick because we're talking about this right now. You know, Joshua Lipstone asks, basically, what is the next thing? Like, what is coming down the pipe? What should we be looking for? What should we be doing in the future with content marketing? And I'm 100% with you on it's really going to come down to the overall site experience. It's no longer going to be point a bunch of links at one page and get that page ranked really high, and if the rest of your site sucks, that's fine, but that one page is ranking great. And the proof is in the pudding. Look at what they've done with YouTube. The #1 ranking factor in YouTube is now how long someone stays in YouTube after watching your video. Right? So if someone comes, watches your video, and leaves, that actually causes a negative impact on your video's SEO. So you can see Google starting to test some of these ideas of human experience in their model. So it really is going to come down to this overall site design. But I'm really interested in your answer to Joshua's question, which is like, where is this thing going? Like, is it?
So I'm going to give Joshua an answer that he likes and that he doesn't like. So the first one is the one that he doesn't like. The next big thing in content marketing is the same thing that was around 2,000 years ago, right? Which is you need to be a great listener, a great communicator, a great teacher, and you got to be extremely helpful. So not to get all religious on you folks, but what made the Bible transcendent, right? What made it transcendent to last as long as it did, okay? So you have, first of all, you have incredible stories, right? But these stories stem from conversations of people asking questions and giving answers over and over again. It's like what the Bible is. Question, answer, question, answer. That's what you see over and over again. And usually it's Jesus hears a question and then he gives some type of answer in the form of a story to people, right? They happen to put those things back in that period of time on a different type of platform, but the platform today would be a computer, right? That's what it would be today, right? So people say, I don't understand how that is. I'm telling you, you've got to get your arms around the basics before you say, well, what else do I need to know? You don't need to know anything until you really, truly understand those principles. Once you do understand those principles, you say, okay, what furthermore can I do in terms of the next big thing? Well, one of the things that I did today, I actually wrote about it today. It's very clear and present, and it's poignant that we're talking about this. Podcasting, although it's not, the world doesn't necessarily see it as I'm listening to podcasts, but here's the thing. Audio listeners are more loyal than textual readers. It is more intimate, it is more profound, and it brings a greater sense of loyalty, trust, and believability. So if you are not considering audio as part of your marketing mediums, you're going to be missing the boat. There are so many companies right now that don't have anybody podcasting in their niche. Nobody. They are going to capture the hill first if they embrace it. They need to get with that thing. They need to get it quickly. They also need to do this, and I've written about this also. And that is they need to start embracing learning centers as part of their overall business model and certainly their website. What is a learning center? A learning center is a place where somebody can go to consume information in their preferred learning style. So their preferred learning style might be, I like webinars. It might be, I like ebooks. It might be, I like short blog posts. It might be, I just want to read case studies. It might be, I just want to watch how-to videos, right? It might be, I want to attend your next conference. But that's what a learning center is. And so a learning center for a company shows all those things in one space where you can quickly find what you are looking for, and you can find it, like I said, quickly, but it's in your style, Ryan, your learning language. That is a big, big deal, and that's what companies are going to start to think about. So we've evolved to the next level of content marketing in that regard.
So I love the idea of learning centers. I think that the companies that are really doing this right have done this intuitively. Maybe not necessarily in a structured way, but intuitively they've done this. I want to piggyback on the podcasting thing and the audio, and just give a couple statistics because I've said this before in other shows and on some interviews I've done, and I believe it so strongly. I know that the average reader to RyanHanley.com stays for 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Average reader, based on Google Analytics, stays for 2 minutes and 2 seconds. The average listener of this show listens for somewhere between, depending on where we are, 25 and 27 minutes. Okay? So the average listener of this show gives me 25 to 27 minutes of their time in one sitting. The average reader, 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. So how many blog posts, if you consider the value that someone places on you as a thought leader, as a trusted resource, in terms of the amount of time, which is our most valuable resource, the amount of time someone is willing to give you in one single sitting, that means I have to produce, what is that?
12 to 1.
12 to 13 blog posts to one audio. So I'm there with you. I mean, this is it's been proven over and over and over again. Jay Baer said it the other day.
Go ahead, sorry.
Everything he does, the number one thing people say to him is, I listen to Social Pros. He said that on his show the other day. Number one thing, all the things that Jay Baer does.
You know who Jay's engaging with? Big, fat brands. Yeah. That's who he's engaging with. And so people say, brands, corporations, they don't listen to podcasts. You're wrong. You're so clearly. And once all of our vehicles are totally linked into, be it iTunes, be it Stitcher, with just a touch of the button, not even a touch of the button. It's going to be audio commands of hey Ford Mustang, please pull up Ryan Hanley on Stitcher for me. And then it says, sure, Marcus, right away. And then all of a sudden I'm listening to it. Like, that's what's going to happen in the next 18 to 24 months when it comes to vehicles, right? So anybody, it's amazing. I wrote this today. I used to get a lot of emails. Everybody would say would start off the same thing. Marcus, been reading all your stuff, man. Love it. Have a question for you. Then it shifted. Marcus, been listening to all your stuff, man. Love it. Got a question for you. One word, Ryan. One word, and it's totally changed the game. Yeah. And that's why people say, Marcus, you were with me on the hike the other day. It was awesome. Thank you. Marcus, you were with me on my workout the other day. Awesome. Thank you. Marcus, man, you make my drive to work so much quicker. It's like, you don't get those statements with blog articles, right? You can't read a blog article very well on a treadmill. You don't want to read it when you're hiking up a mountain. And you shouldn't be reading it when you're in your car, because that's called distracted driving, right? So this is where we are going. You've got to figure out a way. And, you and I are seeing podcasting. But again, let's go back to the simplistic form of really what we're talking about. We're talking about audio learning, listening, right? That's where the great connection is made, and we need to figure out how to promote audio with our business.
Yeah, I'm right with you. It's more intimate. It's different. Even video, right? So I love video. I love YouTube. I'm doing a lot of research on Wistia. I'm thinking about doing some self-hosted stuff. I like that. avenue for video, but there's nothing like audio. There's just nothing like it. You can't watch videos in the car. You can't watch them on the move. There's nothing like it.
The reason goes back to what we just talked about. Video, in so many ways, is not as prolific as audio because they can't find what they're looking for and find it quickly, right? And so video, I can't watch video, although I can listen to video, but at that point it's just audio, right? I can't do it in my car. I can't do it on a hike. I can't really do it as well on a treadmill. So these are the things that, when we're talking about video, and video's still great. I love stinking video. I think video is magical, and it needs to be a part of the sales and buying process, of course. But we've just got this huge group that's totally skipped over audio, and we got to fix that. And I'm just hoping we're gonna be, you and I, in a couple years, Ryan, we're gonna be telling stories about some guy in some really nerdy business to government space, or some really like goofy service offering space that is killing it with podcasting.
Yeah.
And everybody's gonna say, "No, how'd that happen?" Well, it's obvious. It's obvious. They just did it before everybody else.
Yeah. I wrote an article that had nothing to do with content marketing the other day. It was just like something that was on my mind about doing the hard work, right? Like the reason I think, right, like so many people I feel like push back on podcasts and they're like, "Oh, I don't know how to do the technical stuff is so easy." Here's how you do podcasting. Search Pat Flynn how to start a podcast. It is this incredible resource. A child could figure out how to do it just by going step by step through the things. And I'm not trying to knock anybody, but it literally is easy if you really want to do it. It just is work, right? You have to coordinate with incredible thought leaders like Marcus Sheridan if you want to do an interview show, or you have to do some research, or whatever you want your show to be. There is work involved, but if you put in just that little bit of work and you can be the person that jumps out in front of your industry like you did with the pool industry and all this other stuff, it's there. The opportunity is right. People want to know. The thing with podcasts, and this is why it is the untapped gold of content marketing, is because the big corporate executive that you are trying to reach does not have time to read your blog. What he does have time to do is listen to your show on the way into work to get what he needs or what she needs to make their decisions during the day.
Those guys and gals roll, dude.
Yes.
That's how they roll. They roll like that when they're on the and sitting in first class.
Yep.
They roll like that when they're driving to work, like you said, because once they're in the office, forget it, dude. Forget it. They're going to be client facing.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah. So we have a couple more comments and questions here that I just want to jump through. Cindy actually asked a great question, and this is a little more technical, but want to get your answer to this. My question is, do we keep content on our blog or spend time guest posting? I guess really I want to reframe it with this idea that Copy Blogger talks about all the time of digital sharecropping. So how much content goes on your site? How much goes in other places? What is the importance of having that home base? Talk to us about these concepts a little bit.
All right, so first of all, if you're a location-based business, all right, and this is important, if you're a location-based business, I don't think for 1 second you should be doing guest posts. I just don't see the value of it. For river pools, I didn't have any value reaching people that were in California for some pool guy's blog that was in California, right? Now, I'm becoming a manufacturer in that space, and so we're going to be selling internationally fiberglass pool shells all over the world, and it's a process that'll take a couple years, but it's slowly starting to happen, right? Well, now it's going to start to have value for me because my reach is unlimited, right? Guest posting for the sales line, which is my marketing site, that has some value. So I have done guest posting before, but I'll say this, y'all. I would not guest post if the audience of that company is not the perfect audience for you. Don't waste your time with it. Don't waste your time with it. I would not guest post oftentimes as a first priority unless you're trying to establish yourself as a thought leader and you have unlimited reach. And so if I'm just getting into the world of social media, well, it's going to be very difficult for me just to start a blog on social media because every stinking buddy in the world has done it. Now, if I can get on social media today or some other big publication, Social Media Examiner, That's going to be the quickest route one of the quickest routes at that point for me to get my name out there. So at that point, it's great. But I see people ask me, like I've just had some crazy niche and industries ask me about guest blogging, and so often, Ryan, the answer is no, no, not unless you're trying. You have an international. You can just go, 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 go. No, no, that doesn't make any sense. I do have clients that do it, but like I said, they're serving the entire U.S. or the entire North America, not some little city in Nebraska. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think what this comes back to for me is, and we talked actually, we were chatting on the phone the other day a little bit about this. Um, this is revenue generating work, right? Like we're doing this to run a business. So guest posting sounds cool, unless unless that audience has no ability to help you grow your business, then it's a complete waste of time.
Well, you just brought up something really important, Ryan, that we could probably spend a few hours on. I know we won't, but you don't guest post because it's cool. You don't guest post to look cool. You guest post. This is assuming you're a business and you're not just, like whatever. I'm right. I mean, I'm obviously focused on people that are trying to pay their bills as I speak today. Okay, let's just clear the air on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but your focus needs to be, how can I generate revenue? That's if you want to stay and keep the doors open. That's how it works, right? And so if that guest post doesn't directly or indirectly help you generate revenue for your company, if you can't justify it, then you shouldn't do it, period. Because you're going to spend a few hours on it, and therefore you should spend a few hours doing something else. That few hours might be going and knocking doors down the street of other businesses. I'm serious as a heart attack. Okay, because I think there is as much of a place for outbound marketing as there is for inbound marketing in many ways today. Because as we see this pendulum switch, as we see the seesaw go in different directions, it's just like direct mail can work today because nobody's getting any more mail. So if I get a piece of direct mail, like in my mailbox, I actually think it's pretty cool because nobody does it anymore. That must be me. I'm calling you right now on the phone line.
I agree with that. I think really the key is marrying the two, right? Marrying outbound and inbound. I mean, there's still a place for cold calling when it's done right. I mean, I think that you can't base a business on it today because the hit ratio can be so low. But targeted calling of businesses that you have a need and the ability to marry that with your online presence and the resources that you're creating, I think that there's definitely something there.
Ryan, whenever I hear anybody say XYZ type of marketing is bad, I just think to myself, that person is doing their listeners a major injustice. Like I've heard people say PPC is just bad. No, it's not. I get, my swimming pool company gets 320,000 visitors a month. And organic search is 90-something% of that. And we still do pay-per-click. Do you know why? Because we make money with it. Now we're tracking it. I can definitively say, well, even though I spent $10,000 on it last year, which is about what I spent, $10,000 for my swimming pool company, I made a couple $100,000 on it. But there's a lot of clients that I have that PPC doesn't make sense. But my point is, everything has to be like you said, you need to look at each one individually and say, does it make sense? Have I experimented with that? Am I willing to experiment? And then can I measure it if I'm going to experiment? Because if you can't measure it, then again we have a problem. I mean, we need to measure the stuff that we're doing.
Yeah, I agree with you. And this is something that we've actually talked about at length because at varying times I've struggled with tracking as being pinpoint tracking. On all my results, and I do think that we could talk about tracking for a whole nother hour, and I don't want to do that. We're coming up against 11 o'clock here, so I have one more question, and then we'll wrap this up. And it goes to the idea of, and again, I don't mean to keep referencing Copy Blogger, but they do tend
Why
to
not?
push
Those
the
guys
needle.
are great, man.
They push the
Copy
needle on
bloggers,
certain things, and
they deserve all the credit that they get.
yes.
Brian is an incredibly smart guy. Sonia is amazing,
Yep.
and I think the world of both of them, and they have revolutionized in many ways just what it is to build a business online, what it is to start as a blog and then to become a software developer and just to do what they've done. It's like this beautiful, to me, it's this perfect model of evolution of a business and trying to figure out really what you are and what you're trying to say, right? So props to them. I know that's a tangent, but props
No,
to
that's
them.
okay.
Beautiful.
It is beautiful. I think the word beautiful actually represents what they've done perfectly. Um, so let's talk about. I want to talk about the comments then, and not necessarily removing comments,
Comments.
right? But so this is not necessarily removing the comments. That, I mean, that to me, it's a business decision. You make your mind up. I want to talk about the larger piece to that, which is engagement with your audience slash the people who come and read your stuff, right? So I know that for river pools and spas, comments mean next to nothing for you, right? I mean, maybe you get a few, but I'm sure that you're not building a huge audience of people commenting on pool articles. However, I know that on the sales line, it's really where we kind of started to connect. There have
Yeah.
been multiple people on this show which I connected with initially in the comment section of your blog, and it has become a really powerful community. So I want to know, how do you know if that type of engagement is important to your business? Is it important? All that, that kind of stuff. Like where does engagement and commenting and the back and forth
So
play a role?
let's just say this: you can have amazing engagement with your content, and nobody ever leaves a single comment, right? That's important, critical to remember, because generally speaking, for most companies, this is not always the case because everybody always wants to say, "Well, that's not the case in my business." But for most companies, what is 100 times more powerful than a comment is a direct email response. Okay, it's not even close, because somebody that's doing a direct email is very likely, not very likely, but often, well, we know they probably have a problem, and they're looking for a solution, and therefore they could be a potential client, right, or customer, right? That's just how it works. Now, comments are fine. Comments are nice. And comments, though, will never be a metric for major success unless you get paid per comment, right? And I think it used to be I would say that, and people would say to me, well, what if somebody's paying you for, like, it's a brand and they're looking for engagement, and that's how they measure it. Well, okay, people might have measured engagement 2 years ago by comments on a blog. They're not doing it anymore. If they are, they're on drugs, because I think we're all a little bit more mature than that at this point, right? And so there's a lot of danger behind comments too. There's a reason why Seth Godin turned off comments. Seth turned them off because he didn't want the commenters influencing his brain and the way he talked. Now, somebody might say, well, comments would never impact me. Bull crap.
Mm-hmm.
Comments do impact you. They impact all of us. You're not above that. Trust me. You're not Mother Teresa. You're not Eckhart Tolle or something, whatever. Your comments do matter to you, all right? And so if you start to really pay attention to them, you're going to say to yourself, well, as I write this next one, am I going to get as many as I did in the last one? Or this topic is kind of boring. I don't know if it's going to get a lot of comments. And then you start to have this trickle-down effect that's negative. It's a negative domino effect you got to be so careful of. Mm-hmm. Ryan, the greatest articles I've written on the sales line in terms of generating revenue got the least amount of comments. That's a fact, Jack. And oftentimes, the ones that got the most comments and some of the most social shares did squats holy when it comes to generating business. Now, they might have made me feel good. They might have built my brand with all my social media peeps. But Jeff, the CEO of the Fortune 1000, will never read that, and he doesn't care. He just doesn't care. My point is, and I'm not saying that you can't marry the two, but this whole comment thing is, I have comments on. I certainly appreciate comments, but they're not a metric of success. They're not a metric of revenue. And you cannot allow them to dictate your ability to truly talk about the issues of your real customers and your real prospects. And the moment comments influence you whatsoever to go another direction is the moment you got to check yourself and say, what do I need to do differently? What do I need to stop?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I consider turning them off every time I hit publish. I do. Every time I hit publish, I consider turning them off. And it's not because I don't like them. I love them. I mean, one of the reasons that I started a Google Plus Hangout for my podcast, I love the engagement. I love talking to people. It's not because I don't like people, I don't want them, but I think it takes away from what you're trying to do, right? It takes away
If you are an
from...
artist, if you are an artist, man, you look at some of the greatest genius artists in the world, and not like I'm saying, any of us is a genius, but it's like they just wanted to paint their stuff and then move on to the next painting, right? They didn't really want to paint their stuff and then go to the art gallery and field 1,000 questions about that particular masterpiece that they did, and then just answer questions all day about that same masterpiece over and over again. Now, what I'm saying to some of the listeners is going to sound selfish. That's not what I'm saying, though. That's not my point. You love engagement, so do I. But like everybody else, there is a season for everything, right? And the problem with comments, other than the fact that subliminally, subconsciously, they can start to push us down a road that we didn't even realize we were going down, and all of a sudden we've sold out, right, to social and to metrics and to getting more into what our reader said, and we've lost our identity. But they can cause confusion and distraction, and they can take us away from where we're going to be. I used to check. If I didn't answer a comment when I first started the sales line within 10 minutes, I was getting nervous.
Yeah.
Today, I usually answer comments every 2 days. One time in 2 days, I'll usually answer comments. Not always, but it's usually every 2 days I'll go in and answer the most recent comments.
Yeah. I agree. This is what I say to myself. I could spend 25 to 30 minutes or longer answering questions today.
Easily.
Or I could go do some research on a topic that I think is actually going to provide value to people and start creating something that people can use and implement in their business or find interesting. And that is the reason that I consider them turning them off, is because I just feel like it takes away from what you're truly trying to do.
And here's the thing, Ryan. It's a personal thing.
Yeah.
And what most people want to do with social media thought leaders is they want to judge the living snot out of them. When Chris Brogan unfollowed people on Twitter a few years ago, they wanted to judge him for it. When Copy Blogger turned off their comments, they wanted to judge him for it. Why? Why do we do this? It's like their stuff. It's like their property. It's them. It's their life. Let's just all lay off. Let's all allow everybody to figure this stuff out, because it's obvious none of us really know what we're talking about. And we're changing our minds all the time. I've changed my mind other than the principles that I talked about earlier. But I constantly evolve the way I feel about subjects like engagement, subjects like social, all these things, subjects like comments. If you had told me, if you had this conversation about comments with me 4 years ago, Ryan, I would have said it was blasphemous, and I would have called you a bad person, and I would have said these things, and I would have just been totally wrong, because I was just getting in the game, and I was just figuring it all out, and I had no freaking clue. And today, I'm just further along, and what has not changed is I'm still relatively clueless. But what I do know is that time has given me a little bit of wisdom to hold judgment on the actions of others online.
Yeah, I get it. Has anyone ever told you you would have made a good voice actor?
Nobody's ever told me that.
Because you do a lot of voices throughout your spiel here. You probably had 4 to 5 different voices that you've done, different characters that you've shared with us throughout our conversation today.
Thank you, man. I feel I'm going to take that. I'm going to tweet that or something. And make it official.
All right, Marcus. Well, this has been a great conversation. Just loved it. I think we got a ton out of it. I really like that we dived into some topics that maybe people don't think about too much, and given some opinions on things that I don't necessarily think are, especially the conversation about engagement and comments and that kind of stuff. I don't think that this is necessarily the way a lot of people think or talk about this topic.
It's taboo to talk about it because you're afraid you're going to get blasted.
Right.
I probably wouldn't have talked about it a couple years ago, Ryan. I mean, I'm just in a different place now, and I'm grateful to be in this place because it's okay to say, I don't have it all figured out, and I do know certain things. I do know certain things, yes. And time has taught me certain things, yes. And there are certain principles that we all fall under in terms of this umbrella of principles. But at the same time, it's evolving quick, and let's just be really, really careful of how we judge and the blanket statements that we make and how they can impact others. We do have to be very careful. It's been a pleasure being here with you today, man. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, brother. If anyone needs Marcus, I'm gonna tell you where to get him. TheSalesLion.com. Oh, hey, before we get out, I completely forgot. Before we get out, very quickly, tell us about this conference that you got, or where people can get more information. I don't want you to get out before talking
Yeah.
about this.
Oh,
Sorry.
thank you, man. My conference is called the Remarkable Growth Experience. It's a limited seating event. We're going to keep it right about 100, 120, no more than that. Had it last year, or excuse me, the beginning of this year. It was amazing. This is what makes it so unique, Ryan. It actually tears down the silos and completely is involved with sales, marketing with a focus on content marketing, digital, and customer experience. Those three things from three world-class presenters over the course of 2 days. It's completely immersive. It's workshop-like the whole time. You get your elbows, your shoulders, your hands dirty. You get to work. You leave. You're a changed person. You're a changed business. It is the ultimate takeaway conference. It's in Washington, D.C., November 6th and 7th. If anybody is truly serious about a conference this year where they can bring their sales in their marketing, rip down the silos, and make change, come to the Remarkable Growth Experience. If you go to the salesline.com/growth, salesline.com/thesalesline.com/growth, you can read all about it there.
And for everyone listening at home who is not here right now, if you forget that URL, ryanhanley.com/show92, or just the show notes for this show, I will have that linked up as well. And I just remember all the buzz that came out of it last year was amazing. And
It's different, man. It's different.
Yeah.
It's different, and I'm really proud of it, man. I'm
Yeah.
really proud of it. It's going to be special.
This is something that I think, especially the people who listen to this show, because I know the breadth and where people are in their journey who listen to this show, listen to Content Warfare. This is a conference that will change the course of your business. So Marcus, thank you, man. With that, we are going to